Hello friends, and welcome back to Enterprise Architecture. Now last episode we got started on setting up our plastic factory, so we have plastic and rubber now being produced, and I wanted to then use that to start making heavy frames and also computers. Now, I asked you to do one thing for me last episode, and that was to like the video and subscribe if you like the content that I'm making. And I don't ask this sort of stuff very often of you, and y'all really turned out. I just want to tell you all that that gave me something like 50 likes and 20 times as many views as I normally get on any of these videos. It is the most popular video I have now posted in about 6 months. So that's wonderful. If you all could do that again, if you like this video, that would be wonderful. You all are really helping me to push my channel to the next level by going through that process of just clicking that little like button and leaving a comment and subscribing if you like the content that I'm producing. And again, it's really turning out in my numbers, and that really makes me feel really good that I'm spending my time in this silly little hobby and that people actually like to listen to me talk about it while I do it. So that makes me feel really good. That's awesome. It was a great thing to sort of come back to after my little bit of medical leave that I took there. This video, of course, is also coming out a little bit late, and again, if you want to like and subscribe on this one, that would be great. Would certainly appreciate that. That does help us out. But I'm coming to you from the end of this video again as well, just like I did last time. I bit off a little bit more than I could chew in this build, I gotta tell you all. I wanted to really get heavy frames and also computer setup, like I said, in this episode, and we started doing the architecture of the first part of that build. I got this factory that you see in front of me here done, and I think the design on that looks really nice. And then I realized that I needed to go make another factory because this is just making my iron production, and I needed to make an actual factory for just screws, and that ended up taking a really long time. So I'm still actually working on that at this moment, but I'm going to cut that episode in two here. So basically, I'm going to show you all the first half of this, the setting up of that initial unfinished factory for those large components that we need to make. And also I'm going to show you this iron factory that we've got here and how I put all of this together. Now we'll go ahead and release these blueprints as well. If you'd like to use them, they're going to be down in the comment link below there. So grab that if you want to use any of the pieces that you see in this build. But with no further ado, let's dive right in. Now, last episode, we finished setting up our plastic and rubber production factory, and it turned out pretty darn good. Today, we'd like to get started on our train setup, but before we can do that, we need to set up a couple of factories to set up some intermediary components. Namely, we are missing computers and heavy frames. Until we have those, we can't actually make trains. So we're gonna get started on that today. Now, I have to admit, I'm not exactly in love with the last couple of factories that we built for our components. At the end of the day, they were just square boxes. And you know, I actually kind of hate square boxes. I think the other designs that we had done after that really started to come together more. I think our steel factory is one of my better designs. I really like that. And the plastic production factory we did last episode, I really love as well. So today, I thought we would try to buck that trend a little bit. So we are going to start our building here on this side of the map, over here between the two areas near where our oil production, where our coal production is. What I thought we'd do today, instead of just going ahead and plonking down some manufacturers, is actually use this area, this side wall here, to kind of give us the base that we're going to be using for that. So I think what we're going to do is give ourselves a little bit of room between these pieces here. And actually, I think maybe we come over a little bit more with that. Something about right here, I think, is where we're going to end up. And we are going to do some more of our lovely diagonals that we've been doing here that I really have been enjoying playing with. I think that's going to be the sort of thematic piece that we're going to use for a lot of this, is using these double ramps from Structural Solutions. So let me go ahead and drop this in, drop this in, and drop this in. And that's going to be sort of the starting point of this foundation that we're building here. We're going to come out a little bit further from here. And for whatever reason, I can't get this out of the Zoop and Smart mode, but whatever, we're going to live with it. We're going to come down just a little further. Until we get out enough over this that these pillars that I'm going to drop off the bottom of it will come down into a nice location that'll work well for us. I think this will be good right here because now we're still basically over the edge of this. So let's go ahead and see how that's going to look. We're going to grab up a few more of these blocks, and we're going to set these in place like this. Whoops, not going to stab it. No. Let's come down from here with these and sink those right into the ground here. And it looks like maybe we could do just a couple more here. Let's try this. There. Yeah, and that sits nicely on that edge. I could even come a little further forward with that, I think, but I think that works well for now. So this gives us a nice area to play in. Now, we are going to be setting up manufacturers, as I mentioned, and those are going to sit nicely in between the 3 foundation gap that we have left here. So let's go ahead and build out what that platform could maybe sort of kind of look like. Again, we're not committing to anything at this point. We're just kind of playing with it. Now, y'all will note that I'm trying to do this backwards from my usual process. Typically, when I'm building these sorts of things, I lay out the internals of the factory, and then I work my way back into actually adding the pieces that are needed to make it decorated. For this, I really want to buck that trend. I really want to make sure that we are building and thinking about what our actual layout is going to look like first, because I really want the manufacturers to be the center point of this build. That looks nice. But you know what? I think I might come a little more forward with them. And the reason is, number one, I want them to be a little bit more prominent. And number two, potentially, I think I might want to do 2 tiers of them here. And that means I need at least 3 foundations back. So let's go ahead and plonk this down a little lower here. And we'll just remove this platform to give us some room. Let's go ahead and put this right here. Right at the base sticking out. That'll make it the easiest to mess with. And then we're going to do the same here. This is going to be right sticking out of this spot. And then this way 3. Great. And then from here, we should be able to stack a pair of manufacturers here. I'm just going to be kind of careful about where we place them. So about halfway down that first foundation and right centered. That looks about right. Okay, great. So these are going to be the main foundation, the main manufacturers that we're going to be using for our heavy modular frames to start. So for that, we're going to need modular frames, steel pipes, encased industrial beams, and screws. Honestly, of those, the screws are the ones that worry me the most because we don't have very high throughput belts yet. We only can get 270 on there, which means we're only going to be able to fill up 2 of these with a single belt right now, at least until we unlock the next tier. So that does make it a little annoying. Let's go ahead and drop in some conveyor holes real quick here. And we're going to do that on both of these, and that'll help us get things up and down. So that really means for our heavy modular frames, these 2 are going to be the only ones right now that we are going to actually be using. Now, I could actually put another one behind this. I have enough room to tuck a 3rd manufacturer in that space behind here, but I don't think I'm going to yet. We're going to figure this out first. Alright, so I've spent a little bit of time tinkering with this, and I think we've evolved this design in the direction that I want to go with it. So I started swapping out these 8-meter double ramps for the 8-meter double ramps from Satisfactory, the base game. The difference is the Structural Solutions 8-meter double ramps actually are at a 45-degree angle, while the Satisfactory base ones are at a 22.5-degree angle, I believe. So these basically go down only 1 foundation in depth for every 1 foundation deep they are. Excuse me, for every foundation in depth they are, they go down 1 foundation in height, rather than the ones that come with Structural Solutions, which actually go down 2 foundations in height. So that gives us a less dramatic angle, and I think this makes these look a little bit nicely more perched up here. Now, I've also gone ahead and started to decorate this a little bit. I'm using the chamfer tops, which are also in Structural Solutions. You all have probably heard me talk about these because I absolutely love them as a detail element. And that, in contrast to these grip metal foundations, I think works really well. So I probably will go through here and reset up the rest of this using the grip metal foundations. Alright, so I've started to frame this out a little bit further here. We've got 4 rows of 2 each, and I actually tucked in another one down beneath here just to see what it would look like if we wanted to double up. I think we could fit another row down here, maybe even a third row, although this kind of gets in the way with this big rock, but we definitely can do a second row down here. So I might go ahead and build that out for now, even though we aren't going to need those anytime soon. Now, I'm using the Structural Solutions concrete here, and that I'm painting red to match the manufacturers. I'm also starting to tinker with contrasting colors here using a very, very vibrant white as these painted beams here along the edge, which I think will add a nice little bit of contrast. Now, I do want to keep this sort of industrial feel to this, so I probably will also come back and add more of our standard small frame pillars, big frame pillars, and other single types of pieces here. So one thing I could do, for instance, here is pulling off these. And instead, if I replace those with our architectural frame, so if we put these in place instead, this starts to look a little bit more interesting. That kind of keeps that same industrial feel. Maybe let's do another one here. And we could do this as a row all the way down. I think that could work really, really nicely. I probably will stop it at the top there because that does I do want that to overhang a little bit here. But maybe if we go all the way down with this could look cool. Let's just try this real quick. How are we looking? Yeah, that's starting to give us the look and feel. I think that's closer to what we want. That looks like it's supposed to be built in there. All right, so I've started tinkering with this a little bit, changing around the placement and the sizing. I've been thinking about columns here, but the main thing that I have been thinking about is the fact that I'm going to need a ridiculously large amount of screws for our computers and our heavy frames. And I think I'm going to do computers and heavy frames in this section. Eventually I'll expand this and then I'll go out this way and probably out this way with it so that we have more room to basically double or quadruple even the amount of production that we're doing. But that still means a lot of screws. Now, luckily, right nearby here in the Red Desert, we have 3 different nodes that are pure for iron right here. Now, if I put some maxed out minor Mark IIs on top of that, I'm going to be getting a decent amount of iron off of that. And that should be able to create enough screws to keep up with the production of this facility here. With a refinery, I can start doing these diluted metal pieces. The iron ingots with water will give us slightly 2-to-1 here. And we do have a decent amount of water in this lake. So if we use the lake here, or actually we could use the lake that's at the base here, we could set ourselves up a nice little factory for just iron and smelt that into our iron ingots and then turn that into screws. And we could do all that in this lower level here and then pump it up to the top of that. So I think I'm gonna lay that out real fast. All right, so I've gotten myself a whole bunch of power shards and I've started to set up a little spot over here in the Red Desert, just on this southern side of it by the lake, where we've got those 3 pure nodes. I ran a platform all the way out here. I've got my power lines connected all the way out here. And I think this lake over top of it is where we are going to build our little foundry setup for our iron production. So I think we have everything that we need for that. So first things first, we are going to max out some miners on the 3 nodes that we have here. So let's go ahead and grab up our miner Mark II and plonk that down. Let's configure this and we are going to add in all of our shards to this. And that means we are up to 250%. That's 300 iron ore per minute. Now that I believe is more than we can do on a single belt, right? All right, we got that hooked up, and let's see here. We're going to go ahead and use our Mark III belts for now. Like I said, we will upgrade these as soon as we can unlock the Mark IV belts, but we can't unlock the Mark IV belts for a little while because we have the problem that we need computers and heavy metal frames for that, which is the purpose of today's exercise anyway. So yeah, we're just gonna have to come back to that. And now we should be able to lay out our foundations here. Now let's see here, what do we have? I think this time I am gonna go back to concrete. I think that'll look nice. So let's do concrete foundations, and let's start these here. And right along this edge is where we want this. And yes, Mr. Bean is in the way. Something like this, maybe? A little further ticked out, maybe? I'm trying to think what was going to look the most elegant along this edge. Let's do this. Yeah, I think that's going to work nicely for us there. And we're actually going to come up with this. I just want to make sure that those lines fit. But we don't want to go up too high because we are going to need pumps here for our water if we come up too high. Well, honestly, at this height, we're going to need pumps no matter what. So let's just do this. All right, so that's going to be the edge of our factory. I am going to keep the bottom open here for now because I think it's going to look really nice if we can actually see the water underneath it. So we're going to leave that. And it looks like that's already in the water, so we can't go any deeper there. And yeah, I think all of the various items should come in on some side of this. Maybe let's go all the way over to this coast with it. And then down? There, let's do that. That's starting to shape up a little bit here. And I kind of like the way that this little bit goes underneath it here. That's kind of nice to keep that beach open. So maybe we come back this way as well. And let's just clear out these 1 or 2 trees that are in the way. Just a little bit of deforestation here. And yeah, that's the general space we're gonna want here. So we're gonna need some water. So that's gonna be pumped up from the water extractors. And this will just come out as a platform here. Now, I do need to remember how this works. So let's see here. N iron ingot, what do we make that in? It is in the refinery with our raw iron. And I'm going to move these around a little bit once I get this figured out. But I do at least want to figure out, yeah, there we go, what the ratios are going to be here. So 1, 2, 3, let's max that out. 81.25 per minute. That is an awkward number. All right, so the math gets a little dodgy here. We've got 300 per pipe coming in, or per belt coming in, and that divided by 43.75 is just under 7 of these that we're gonna need. And then that's times, let's see here. How many of those? 81.25. So that times 81.25. Oof, that is a lot of iron coming out. So we're basically getting 560-ish, roughly. Well, you can see how many we're getting. 557.14 pieces of iron coming out of that. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to deal with all of that. That probably means we need 2 sets of belts for our total refineries. But also, I don't love the fact that we have 7 of these that we need for each set. So what we can do here is probably play with that a little bit here. I also, how much space do we even have here? If we're gonna do, what is that, 21 of these all day? That's, let's see, that's basically 7 there, right? If we do it on a platform so that they're not stungled up and they have a little bit more space. And then that means we're gonna have to come out over the water at least, yeah, to here. That's not quite as elegant as I would have wanted. So I think what we're gonna do here is potentially frame this with, maybe we do 7 on each side. We could do here and here. So there is 22 refineries, which is 1 more than we need. The last one we just will basically never turn on, and that's gonna be perfectly okay by us, but I wanted that nice symmetry here. So I think that this is a better trade-off. And I did figure out that I could squish them just a little bit further out into the area than I would have liked, but that does give us room for all of these. Now, the only thing that makes this a little complicated, figuring out how we are going to get our logistics in here, given such a tight space and the fact that this is setting into the ground a little bit. Ideally, our logistics need to come in from this side here. So all of this lovely, lovely iron, I think I'm going to pipe in either straight through the middle, which actually seems like a very, very viable opportunity at this point. Or maybe in through one of the far sides here and then all the way down and then split them off. We are going to have 3 belts to deal with one way or the other. So that basically is the width of a whole foundation. In addition to our water, which is going to need to get pumped in from over here on this side. Now the water equation works a little bit better for us because we do have 21 of these active producing or needing 1,050 water in total, but if we max out a couple of our water producers, whatever they call those, the pumps, we only need 3.5 if we max them. So we can just put 4 down here in the water, and that will produce all of the water necessary for all of these things. The other magical thing, the number of assemblers that we are going to need for all of that iron is... that's a lot. That is a whole lot there. So here's our basic logistics setup. I just have all of the things running underneath the floor per usual and then popping back up here into our refineries. And of course, I'm going to set these refineries to be maxed out again. I went ahead and cheated in a bunch of shards, but you all already know I'm playing in no cost mode. And we have the mod added so that we can go ahead and add and build more shards as we go. So I don't feel so bad about that. So we are going to max these refineries. Now I tried a version where I had the assemblers on top of this to be able to make the various pieces of the puzzle. Constructors, excuse me, not assemblers. I'm going to keep making that mistake. So I'd set those up above this to start creating iron rods, but the math doesn't really work out and it got a little claustrophobic really, really quickly. So we're not doing that. Instead, what I do want to do though is, no, not Open Smart Mod. I want to play with this space a little bit here because I really would love to go ahead and set my foundations here that I would be using to decorate this. So I think this would look really, really nice if we had some sort of a column going in over here, but I think that if we set these encased in walls, it would look really nice because I only want this front half here to stick out, basically from where I've got this line set. So to that end, if I can get those diagonals to set really nicely, this could work really interestingly, I think. So let's go ahead and play with this a little bit. I think I kind of want these corners to go kind of back to here. So yeah, roughly on this line. So let's start tinkering with playing with some foundations over here. So I'm going to put this there to start, and then I want this road barrier on the corner of that. And then that should line up really nicely here. So let's remove these extra ones that are just kind of in my way for now. I'm going to pull that out. Yeah, so that's giving us what we want there, and that's giving us what we want there. That's starting to get there. And if we start combining that with some of our other pieces here, I think we can get some interesting texture with it. So what do we have under architecture? So this design is finally starting to come together a bit. I'm trying to use these diagonals with some down corner ramps on the top and on the bottom, which gives us a little bit more visual interest with these diagonals. I then put in a couple of poles here using the beam technique to get these big metal pillars in place, and of course added some label signs to that. Now I've only temporarily got the global lighting turned on because it just kills my frame rate every time I turn it on, but just to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. Now notice that I only have the column on one side rather than on both sides because this is a tileable design. So these are going to snuggle in next to each other, and then these will overlap on those columns. Now, the other great thing about the way that this sits into those edges very nicely is that if you go along to the back, the ladders are still accessible here. So in theory, if we do put in any sort of a roof that we allow access back up here, we can really nicely be able to get back up onto that roof. And that's going to line up very perfectly just under this edge. So that's going to work really good for us. So there we have our initial set of refineries. We actually have more than we need here because we have 24 altogether. That means there's an extra 3 here that we can disconnect from our total lines, and I'm going to do that on the far end of each side here. So that should about account for all of the factory pieces, all the refineries that we need. Now, the last thing to do on this little build is to go ahead and connect these up to the water supply. So we're going to come along the back here and add down our water generators. What do they call those again? The water extractors? Yeah, that's what we need to do is put down a bunch of these. So, since each water extractor can be souped up to handle 300 meters per second, which matches our pipelines here. I do believe that means that we just need for each 6 of these to have one of our extractors. So I think that will work there, and then we'll do the same thing over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remove this section of pipeline like that, and now we can have all of our water flowing in there. And to make that work even better, I think we're actually going to build our water extractors right off of this section. So let's just come down with them into the water here and see how far out we need to go before we can put our extractors in. Okay, so that's actually a little lower into the water than we need. All right, so there we have a nice broad platform, and now we just need to go through and put our water extractors on either side here. Let's grab those up, and I misclicked. There we go, water extractors, great. And we're gonna put these in place right here. And you know what? I could go ahead and just max these out when I do this, but I think instead of overclocking these, I think I'm just going to make a row of them. I think that's the better way to do this. So let's do one here, or maybe we'll just overclock them a little. One there. So that's going to give us 240. No, you know what? I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to make these underclocked because then it's just going to look prettier. I think that's the way to do this, is to go for looks, not necessarily so that these are perfect. All right, so there's our nice little water extractor pier, and then I think to make this look a little bit better, let's go ahead and put our framed foundations underneath here. Perfect. Okay, that's starting to give this thing some shape. We will remove maybe this last one. There we go. And now we just need to run our pipes up here and add some pumps as well. So I think the way to do that is we're going to go ahead and lay this right along the top of this. And I know that means that the pipes will be a little bendy, but I'm okay with that. I can live with that. So let's go ahead and grab up our pipes here. We are going to use Mark II pipes, and let's just go ahead. Let's go on this side with them. We're going to go all the way down to here. Oh, a little further than it wants to go. We'll do that. That'll work. And then we'll do the same on the other side here. There, that'll do. All right, so all that's left to do here is maybe add a little bit of railings, and let's go with the modern railings here. I think that's gonna look the nicest for this design. Put those in place here, and then zoop these all the way down. Whoop, if I can, there we go. All the way down to the edge of the pier. There, great. Now this pier could use a lot more decoration still. It needs some pillars and things like that to make it really work. Maybe some lighting as well, but I think for now, this is gonna do nicely for us. Let's go ahead and repeat this same process for the ones on the other side here. All right, water is laid out. Now the only thing left to do here is to route our various pieces inside here. All of our iron ore needs to come into the factory. The easiest way to do that here, because I want it to look nice and symmetrical, is I used a bunch of these painted beams here to bridge this gap between the two sides. Now, because the two sides are off from each other at an odd angle, it's almost impossible to find a perfect way to match these up. So this is the best trick that I can come up with. If we use these painted beams, we can align our items to those instead, even when they're at an awkward angle. So let's go ahead and put our splitter down as far up here as we can where it still looks okay. I think that's the place. We're going to put our conveyor poles directly onto these painted beams because, again, you can line them up on there and they'll still lock to particular units on there. And then these are going to go inside of our factory here. Now, I think I've got our logistics laid out in such a way here that, yeah, these splitters are going to be on the right here. So we're going to start by running this belt into the first set of them. And then these here are going to run, the second ones are going to come to the second set of them. Now we can also snap foundations to these beams. So we've gone ahead and done that and then just nudged them into the direction that we want. And now this gives us nice clean belts full of iron coming in right now. So that is 900 iron per minute we're looking at right there. A little less because again, we're at Mark III belts, but we're going to upgrade that soon. Now, when that raw iron becomes ingots, we are storing it in one of Akila's wonderful mods, special containers. We're using a triple wall container here. And that's great because it's got 3 inputs and 3 outputs. So we should easily be able to hit the throughput we need to get all the ingots in and out of that. So the only thing that's missing now is to wire up this factory. So let's just run our power pole over as close as we can get it. Let's do here. And let's go ahead and set this down like right there. And now we can just go underneath here and connect this up. Let's do that side. And we will do this side. And there you can see the very rapid rate at which we are getting iron ingots. So this thing should be filled up in no time flat. Now that we have all of that done, it's time to make iron rods and then our screws out of it. Alright, so like I said earlier, I am having to split this video into 2. We have just done too much work here, and as I said, I'm not quite finished with this second piece of this build yet, even now, and I've been working on it for about 2 weeks now. So I'm gonna just like split it right here, and we'll come back in the next episode and show you that huge mega screw factory that I've created. So, thanks again for watching Enterprise Architecture, and we'll see you here then. Bye, friends!